Okay, so now we're going to do some fun stuff. We're going to look at Gui programming in Java. So we're going to look at Swing, which is written on top of AWT, Abstract Window Toolkit. We're not going to go through all the mechanics of it, but rather I'm going to show you some really cool examples. And so I want to show you, I changed the URL, so you can just go to bhacker.com. You don't have to type in a / with Sophia. It'll just take you to that subfolder automatically. And in that subfolder, I put it under our class Programming Language Paradigm. So this is what you're going to get when you go to that folder. You just click on the folder, it'll open it up. The files we're going to work on right now, well, the one that we actually did before the midterm was this one here. It says assignment 3/finished. That's the one you want to use as an example if you're still needing help with that. And my scanner's out here too. The ones that we're going to look at now are the ones called JavaPad. This is going to be like Notepad. JavaPad.zip and Swing.zip and Gui Java.ppt. Those are the three we're going to look at right now, which is basically going to go over assignment number 4 for you. Okay. So this is the PowerPoint. Let's take a look though at the assignment first. The assignment looks extremely intimidating, but it really isn't. It's actually kind of easy. In this lab, you're required to program in Swing and file I/O. Well, I'm going to give you the file I/O part. Actually, I'm going to give you the Swing part too. But I want you to use that as an example and see if you can assemble your own Notepad program. So this is learn by example. And the code is actually kind of cool. I put together other kind of old examples, but I have a calculator and I have a Tic-Tac-Toe Game actually to show you events on button clicking and stuff too. But the GUI is going to look like this, and we're going to see that this window is actually built with one object, so it's not so bad. Most people look at this and they go, oh my god, it's like a huge jump. But this is basically not really a GUI programming course, but it's interesting to see. So you're going to use GUI containers, components. You're going to use like a J text area, J menu bar. Swing's got, well, actually there's 2 packages, and I'll go through those in a few minutes. But these are all built-in components. So you're going to create a J menu, and the J menu will have color and stuff like that associated with it, for color and fonts and stuff. And the screenshots are kind of old looking because they're from a Windows system from like about, I don't know, 5 or 6 years ago. And the Swing components haven't changed in years. I don't know if this actually, let's see if this works here. If this link actually works. Oh, it does work. Look at that. But it's been depreciated. So we have documentation here if you want to go through and take a look from the file chooser and stuff like that. So anyway, if you're familiar with Notepad, you're gonna make Notepad. So I have a couple of versions of Notepad actually already pre-built for you. And we'll take a look at this. And just don't stress out because it's a lot easier than you think it probably is. So what I want to do is introduce to you the GUI, Graphical User Interface Components of Java, which essentially is what people are using to make the, obviously Windows-looking programs. So we're going to learn about the GUI components. We're going to learn about how to use the J-frame, the J-label, the J-text field, J-button, and see how they work and become familiar with what's called event-driven programming. It's like when you click into a box or when you click onto a button. Discover events and event handlers. Explore object-oriented design a little bit. We've been doing that a lot outside of this. And learning how to identify objects, classes, and members of classes. Well, we're going to use built-in classes right now. So inputs and outputs are viewed simultaneously with the GUI programming. And some people refer to it as event-driven because it's basically, the user is controlling the flow of the program. If you remember what we did before the lunch hour, we wrote a text menu, and it just kind of comes up, and it's really the program that's controlling the flow and it's taking the user input. So this is really the backwards. This is really the opposite. Today's kind of focus was on GUI and on command line interfaces and menus. So when we're looking at GUI and event-driven, it's input values in any order you want, depending upon what is clicked on or what is used, we're going to get some sort of response. So we change the input values in the window, and we click buttons to get output. Here's the big nutshell here. So there's a J in front of everything. And then we have one version of it with no J, which is your difference between AWT and Swing. Swing's built on top of AWT. AWT was platform dependent. Swing is supposed to be platform independent-ish. Neither one of them are really platform independent, actually, if you think about it. What does that mean? It uses the underlying operating system platform to actually create the window. So it's built on top of foundation classes that are built on top of the operating system you're on. So my program, and you're going to see it in my Mac, is going to look different than it would on your Windows program using the same libraries, same calls. But we have things that are very similar. If you've ever done any web development work at all, it's very similar. We have a label is a label. This is a title, but a label is like a text thing. We have text fields where we can put numbers in here. We've got buttons, J buttons, and down here a frame, which is actually the window frame inside of the window, or the window itself actually. So we have different components, and they're all in a hierarchy, and they all sit inside a container. And we create instances of these objects in the hierarchy to put together the interface piece by piece, and it's all kind of stacked on top of each other in a hierarchy. Probably a better way of saying it. So the components are placed inside of a content pane. Content pane is then put inside of a layout. The layout could be top, down, left, right. There's different types and forms of layouts as we're looking at this as well. And so the components are windows, labels, text area, buttons. We can add the content pane to a window, not add it to a window itself. And then we could actually work with pixels as well as picture elements. So I'm going to show you some examples in a few minutes, and you'll kind of see how the pieces come together. But I kind of wanted to give you the terminology first. So we have this frame object that represents the window. And then inside, it provides us with all of the different attributes that are associated with the window, like the title on the window, whether or not there's a minimize or a maximize button, how big the window is, and actually where the window is positioned on the screen is also another consideration. Measured in pixels, height and width, and then we have attributes that are associated with the window, the title, the width, the height, things of that nature. The class object is a JFrame. So the GUI instance that's created of it is an instance of frame, used from JFrame, and J stands for Java. The Swing terminology for you, and provides the various different methods to control the window attributes. As an example, JFrame, you can create a JFrame using, and then these are sort of the constructor methods, or constructors I should say, to create it. You can put it with a string. As an example, you can just create a frame using the syntax. We'll see it live in a few minutes. You can use a JFrame with a string to actually have a title appear on it. You can set the size, set the title, run methods to change the characteristics of the JFrame that you've created as well. Set visible, set invisible, or actually just set visible true or false. You're going to do it that way. Set default close operation. Add window listener for events on the window. So you add a listener onto the window to pick up events like where is the user clicking, what's open, what's been selected, things of that nature. So two ways to create a window. First way is to declare an object of type JFrame. We'll see that in a few minutes. Instantiate the object and use various methods to manipulate the window. The second way is to create a class-containing application program by extending the definition of JFrame by creating your own window, which brings into this concept of abstract methods and interfaces, which we're going to get to in the next assignment. So this utilizes inheritance. So if we have an abstract version of a window, we have a window that has all of the technical components already predefined in it. And then we're going to make our own inherited class from this abstract concept of a window or frame. And then we can implement special behavior for it. So we can build on classes that are in the system, and we can create our own classes, which is sort of the direction of where we're going to in the next assignment, which may or may not get to today. We'll see what happens. But in the content frame, pane, the inner area of the GUI window below the bar inside the border is where it's located. And it's also referred to, or you declare a reference variable of type container. Container holds on to everything that's going to be in the frame. And you can get the content pane by the class JFrame. And so here's an example of adding something to a content frame, setting the layout of the content frame. There's like predefined layouts that are set that allow you to place things on the window in a certain order. And these are the things that we're placing on the window as an example of JLabel. Well, it's a label just like a label that you would get in any like Visual Basic or Visual C++ or any of those programming languages you've used and you've like taken. The interesting thing here is there are some Gui tools that will do this for you. Or you can write the code yourself. NetBeans actually has a pretty good, well, Eclipse doesn't really have anything good for dragging and dropping. I think NetBeans used to have a plugin to do something with this. Basically, if you've ever seen like Visual Studio where you open up the canvas and you start dragging widgets and you start putting things onto the window, and then it fills in the code for you, kind of, sort of. You have to like put your own information in there for the button presses. Java is a little bit more primitive than that. You can write the code yourself, or you can get a third-party tool to drag and drop and stick stuff in. If you write the code yourself, you end up with better-looking code. You use some of the GUI tools. It's just like those web, those web development tools where you're going to create a web page and you're just dragging stuff and you're sticking it on there. And then when you go look at the files, they're like really big. Not only are they big, but they have a bunch of extra code in them. It's not just hard-coded HTML. There's a bunch of library support and stuff in there that's from the toolkit, basically. Makes the page really like heavy. I mean, not heavy, but it makes it like time-consuming to load because it has so much stuff in it. Same problem with the GUI tools for Java. So it's actually a little bit better if you can just write it on your own, because then you make a cleaner, lighter weight interface. So anyway, we'll see in a few minutes how the JLabel works. Used to create labels, and there's a label attributes that are associated with it. There's a title, the width, the height. And to create a label, you instantiate a new object of JLabel, and you modify the attributes. And then here's an example of a JLabel with a string and an alignment. We're going to put it left aligned, right aligned, centered. So I have a little tic-tac-toe game that you can look at to kind of see in a few minutes. And then this is just more stuff you can do. You can put an icon on the label along with it if you wanted to put like a label on a button or something. So the text field is where we're going to take entry in from the text. So it's object belongs to JTextField class. And you're making an instance of that object. And then here's some of the methods, and some of the information that goes along with it. You can set the text, get the text, make it so that the text field can be edited, or lock it so you can't, or add an action listener so that you can tell if somebody's clicked into the text field or something and if the text has changed. Then we have a button. Creates a button in Java, so you can create a nice little nifty little button, and you can use the same technique that's used to create a JLabel and a JText field. I think our tic-tac-toe game with the button is probably going to be an easier one to look at. Okay, and the rest of this lecture, and I've left it up here so you can just kind of thumb through it and see. It's just an overview of some of the popular components that are part of Swing and AWT, which are really much the same thing these days. Swing is built on top of the Abstract Window Toolkit, and it's just a library of predefined GUI components. So in terms of handling the event, you can put an event listener on it for when an action occurs, an action events for a button, an event listener. So you can register the listener, and then we have an action listener, which is part of AWT Tic-Tac-Toe.event to see when something has been clicked on. So you put the listener on a button. When the button is clicked, it registers the event, and then it can automatically kind of do something with it. So this example kind of goes through a rectangular kind of area, and it's doing a, I don't know, it looks like it's creating a rectangle of some sort, calculating the width or the area of a rectangle or something. It looks like area of rectangle, actually. Old GUI. I'm going to show you a more current one in a few minutes. In this example, lecture example, there's also one for a temperature conversion. So you can put two temperatures in and convert from Celsius to Fahrenheit back and forth. So I've got better examples. So if you download from the website, here's where they are, because most people are going to want to get this, I guarantee it. You're going to want JavaPad, and you're going to want Swing if you're going to follow along with the examples. Get them and you unpack them and zip them. Swing is going to have a Notepad example in it, and this one, the other one, I think, actually, I'm sorry, JavaPad's got the Notepad inside of it, and then the Swing example has got Swing Programming in here. And Swing Programming here has got a calculator, a Tic-Tac-Toe Game, and a Hello World and a Notepad actually inside of it. So to get them into Eclipse, to refresh your memory, let me load up Eclipse. Don't have it loaded. I'll take it out and load them back in so you can see what I'm doing. I just downloaded them and I put them on top of my desktop. And I'm going to delete them actually. So I can show you what I'm doing. So they're not in here. They're not in my Eclipse. I downloaded them, I unpacked them or unzipped them, and they're on my desktop. So I'm going to go File, Import from Eclipse, and I'm going to import an existing project into my workspace under the General category. I'm going to go Next, and I'm going to select my desktop. So I'm going to go Browse to the desktop. There we go. And then it's kind of weird. You could click on stuff, or you could just press Open. If I click on one of these, I'm going to get one or the other, but I can do them both at the same time. If I just click on the desktop where they're both unpacked and click on Open, and then it'll stick. No, it didn't do it. I guess I have to click on. them. Okay. Wow, what's wrong? It's already existing. Some projects are imported because they already exist in the workspace. Hold on one second. Let me fix my workspace. I loaded them in, but I didn't unload them from the workspace. Hold on one second. Workspace. Documents. Workspace. Let me get rid of this one. And this one. Let's try it again. File, imports, existing projects, next, browse, desktop. Now I'm just going to press open on the desktop. I should see them. Yes, they're in this little window, but you can't see them. Actually, I can sort of scroll it a little bit. The window, because I'm on the big screen here, I can see both projects are in here. It says Swing, and then the other one says Swing Programming underneath it, with the path from the desktop. They're both selected. The window looks weird because of the display. If I press finish, I see them both back in here. There was a button there to copy them into Workspace. If I copied them into Workspace, then I wouldn't be running them from the desktop. I would be running them from the Workspace folder. You probably do want to copy it into Workspace. So there's a, let me just show you one real quick. Oh, actually I saw it right there anyway. Right here, copy project into Workspace. If you select this option here, then you'll have them saved in the Workspace. But they're already in here, so I'm not going to do this again. So I'm going to press cancel. So I'm going to save Swing for a few minutes. So I'm going to go into Swing Programming. In Swing Programming, I've got some interesting little things in here. There's a swing calculator, there's a regular calculator. So what I'm going to do is open up the regular calculator right now and take a look at the code for this, where I've got, I'm going to get a little space here. There we go. AWT, Abstract Window Toolkit, is what that stands for. And then event, which is the event handler for AWT. And then there's a swing from AWAX, which is the X, well, it's the window interface. Cross-platform is what the X stands for cross-platform compatibility. But it's still based on top of AWT, so I don't know exactly how cross-platform it really is. Yeah? Because I clicked on the one that says calculator. Did you click on swing calculator? Oh, if you click on this guy here, the little arrow, it opens it up. The plus opens it up. Yeah, there you go. All right. So this is class calculator, and extends we know from inheritance. So rather than writing the code, I just want to go through the code with you to kind of tell you. And then what I've got open right now is the one that's called calculator. We can run it, and we can see in a few minutes what this does. But this one is inheriting. It's extending from JFrame, and JFrame is the abstract object that gives us the frame, gives us the window. And then we're creating a font, and it's going to be a bigger font of 20. And then we have a J field. We're going to call it text field. And we've got some other things in here to keep track of the operators and the pluses and the minuses, and the operators and the equal sign. So these are variables we're going to keep track of what people have what people have entered into the calculator itself. And so we have another well, this is the calculator class. So here's our constructor. Our constructor is going to take and create a new text field that's going to store the output, and then it's going to create an action listener, number listener, with a button order and buttons. So let me actually just run calculator actually. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to click on the object itself, the calculator.java, which actually, let me take a look here real quick, make sure this is main. This does not have main in it. It does not have main in it. No, let me look at the swing calculator. Swing calculator is the main program. So swing calculator is the driver. Swing calculator makes a instance of calculator. So remember, we had stockbroker and the stock item. So the stock item itself had all the functionality associated with the stock. And then the stock exchange, I think we called it, made an instance of it. So JFrame is going to be equal to new calculator, because calculator extends JFrame. It's a compatible frame. It's compatible to JFrame. And then set the close button to exit on close, and set to visible to true. So if I ran this particular file, I get this little calculator window that shows up. Let me minimize this background so you can sort of see what's going on here. This is the program running. So I have a text field that has and actually I can type into this text field, which is weird. So I can go 12, and I can go minus 10. I don't know if that's going to work actually. No. I have to use the buttons. It's not going to register, so I have to go like 12 minus 3 equals 9. So, what kind of error did you get? All right, so let me cancel this and run this program one more time so I can show you what I've done here. So I just went to run, but I'm clicked on swing calculator. So you can also just right mouse click and do run as, and then Java application. Okay, so let me pause this for a second. So because I'm on a Mac, you can see up in the left-hand side I have the little menu that comes up for swing calculator. You're not going to get that on a Windows computer. At best, you're going to get a window that's going to say, well, that's actually all it's going to say. And you probably maybe end up with a drop-down menu depending upon if you put menus on it. But this is not going to have a menu. So the calculator is actually a fully functioning calculator. Swing calculator is making an instance of calculator. Calculator is using all those components I was just showing you in that PowerPoint. So it's making a J. This is a J text field. These are buttons. When it presses the button, there's a listener on the buttons. So it's fairly sophisticated looking. It is a calculator. It does work. Oops, there we go. It doesn't respond to text, however, that's typed into the text field. You actually have to press the buttons in order to get any functionality to work. So in the source code, let's go back to here now. Oops. This is the Swing calculator, making an instance of calculator. Calculator is one we were just looking at. Calculator, if you take a look at the design of the buttons, let's go back up to the top here. This is a lot of code, and I'm just going to basically showing you just the GUI component parts of it, just to give you some exposure to what this is looking at. The button panel is in a layout called a grid layout. The grid layout here is on a 4x4 grid. So we have 4 rows and 4 columns. It's kind of like a spreadsheet in terms of the layout. We have a little loop in here, and this is really sloppy looking code, but you know, for I is equal to 0, I is less than the button order dot length, and button order is going to be here's a string that we put together with 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. It's just taking one character at a time and putting them on the label of the buttons. So if the key doesn't equal an empty one, then create a button panel, add a new J label. So the labels are on the buttons essentially that are in the interface, and then the J button is equal to new J button with the key. The key is created by the order of this loop 1 through 0. And then it's just some information setting the font, adding the button now to the panel. And then here's the interesting part. Here's the action listener. So the action listener is on the buttons, which is why when you type into that little text field it doesn't work. Because it needs to pick up the action listener. From the action listener, whatever it picked up, it's going to run one of these actions, which is a method that's associated with it. And the actions are going to do kind of very similar to what we did earlier today with our text menu when we created a little logic. If it was, we did a case switch on that one. This is using an if-else. So if the equals operator is equal to equal, then do something. Else, if it's plus, minus, division, multiplication, then run one of these methods. And here's the methods down here where we have get the total, set the total, add, subtract, multiply, divide, convert to number from a string. So returning a string to a number to do it. Very similar, extremely similar. In fact, Android is another toolkit written on top of Swing. Yeah.
But are these elements responsive, or they are just fixed or absolutely sitting there?
Oh no, you can move them. You can't. There's no touch controls on it though. Touch events are in a different library that you can actually put on there, but it'll interface with mouse and keyboard. It's definitely has event controls on it. You can move the controls themselves, like if we wanted to. I don't have an example right now that's going to do that, but we could have it so you click on an image and the image moves. That's possible with Swing as well.
I mean to make it responsive, to the size change.
Yes, you can make it resizable too.
Okay.
Yeah. In fact, we're going to see that with the next one actually. So this is a lot of code and it's a little overwhelming. So what I did is I just put this out here as some easier examples to look at. So I want to show you another one. It's the Tic-Tac-Toe Game actually. The Tic-Tac-Toe Game is not so bad either. In fact, you see the code is a little bit easier. Because Tic-Tac-Toe has got a bunch of empty buttons on it. So you've got to action listener. So tic-tac-toe is implementing an interface, and the interface is an action listener. So I'm going to be talking about, probably not until the next time we meet. I might talk a little bit about abstract classes today, but we're going to need to get into abstract classes and interfaces. An abstract class is one where you've got some base implementation, and then you've left a few things unimplemented because you want to build on that functionality and create a more specialized version of it. An interface is a set of tools and things that you want to inherit into the class and use, like an action listener, that's already pre-built for you, but on its own it has no value. So in Java, there's single line inheritance with interfaces. In C++, there's multiple inheritance, no interfaces. So in C++, as an example, you could have one class could extend 5 other classes, and it could make absolutely no sense. In Java, one class only extends one other class. So it's a one-to-one single line, but it can implement as many interfaces as you want. So what that's meaning is that those interfaces are more clearly defined as separate add-on components. Like we want to give it print functionality, or we want, in this particular case, we want to give it an action listener. So we have a pre-built class that we implement in our abstract or in our inherited class from an abstract class, and then we build the functionality in a hierarchy this way. So have a lot more on that for you, but probably not on interfaces until next time I see you. But anyway, this one's fairly straightforward, but it's using and implementing an interface here. So the J-frame is going to say tic-tac-toe on it. We got 9 buttons. We got a string for the letter to make it 0. Then we're going to pick up the letter on the button. So we have a window size here that we set at 300 by 300. All you can do is like set it resizable, and then the window itself can be resized any size you want to make it actually. We took the exit on close behavior, again using another grid layout, and now we're adding the buttons to the window. Window.add. The window here is the window object that was created right up here, which is a J-frame. And then we're going to set the size, set the default value, add the buttons to it, add a listener to the buttons. And then when the buttons are, and then make the window visible, of course. Set the visible to true. And then when the action is performed, this is the method that's going to perform automatically on the action listener when the user actually does click on one of the buttons. What's that going to do? Well, it's going to calculate whose turn it is, and then change the button label to be an X or an O depending upon whose turn it is. You can easily modify this to put pictures of X's and O's in here too. Display the X's and O's on the buttons. Here's going to button 1.set text to the letter. The letter is going to be equal to O or X depending upon if that's an odd or even turn. So it's really not using very sophisticated logic. It's just seeing every other is an X or an O. And then it does do score keeping though. It determines if there's a winner if the text is the same from button number 1, 3, and I don't know, it goes 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 1, 2, and 3, and horizontal and vertical. It does to see comparison to see if the button text is an X or an O, if you have 3 O's or 3 X's. So it does actually check for that. So it checks for horizontal and vertical and diagonal wins. And then a little dialog box will come up at the end of the game basically saying that, hey, somebody won when somebody does win. After each click event, it does a check to see if there's a win. And then it comes back and reports if there was or not. And then here is your static void main methods right here. So there's no real driver class to this. Instead, we have a new Tic-Tac-Toe game that's created. And the Tic-Tac-Toe is the class that's up here, Tic-Tac-Toe. So instead of separating it out into 2 different programs, it's kept into one. So the other thing, is the difference between the calculator and the swing calculator. This is the driver program for the calculator. For this one, we just put it together. So it's okay to, if you wanted to add a main method, static void main method to the class object to run it. It's a great way of testing it. So if I run this one, let's see, I'm probably going to get the other one showing up. No, here's the Tic-Tac-Toe game. So when I press on the buttons, the action listener, well, it's moving my focus in a funny direction, so that's not that good. See if I can figure out how to win. There we go. X wins. Now I could probably put like a little message up here instead of message. Probably could put it like my own image in here, and I press OK. I probably could reset it. O wins. It's not reset. So the logic is a little flawed. It keeps going. Oh yeah, X and O won. Yeah, it's a little flawed. Yeah, it's not meant to be perfect. So there's your tic-tac-toe. There's another little one in here called Notepad, and this is really the theme of the assignment that you're going to be looking at and we're going to be working with. So what I want you to do, and this is kind of a revised version of the assignment, you can do the assignment by looking at this one here. This Notepad's going to print. Well, let me run it and I'll show you what this thing actually does. So Notepad looks like this. Like there's a file menu, it says open. Let's put something here. Let me create a file. This is a test of the Notepad program. There we go. And I'm going to go File, Save, and I'm going to save it on my desktop. Okay, desktop. I'm going to call this one Test. Testing Notepad. .txt. There we go. I don't know. I'm just going to give it a file name. There it is. So I could wipe out what's in here. This looks like a really, really old Apple program, by the way. Open. Let's see, desktop. This one. There we go. Now it's back. So it does do the file I/O for you. It does open and shut. And here's like a little screen about Notepad. That looks very primitive. Not very much functionality to this one. It's pretty simple. There's a little quit button. There's nothing you can pretty much. I have a more sophisticated one in a few minutes I'll show you. But this is the simpler version of it. So let's take a look at this one. This one extends JFrame, implements action listener. They're all doing the same thing. But instead we have a really big text area. So, and I forgot to show you something with this one. This answers your question. The other ones were fixed frame. This one actually has everything enabled on it because it didn't get positioned. So it's definitely more flexible. The imports are always going to be the same. This one's got scanner on it though. Remember scanner? We looked at that for the I/O because it's taking the input from the text area and it's going to copy it into the file. It's using a JFile chooser. So Notepad extends JFrame, implements action listener. We have a text area, a menu bar. This is the menu bar that shows up. And on the menu bar, we're going to create a menu item called File. So if we looked at, in fact, I could just keep this running. See, it created this file. This is what it's talking about. Now, if you're on a Windows machine, this is going to show up in the window frame. It's not going to show up in the actual interface like this. So we have the file menu, and then we created some menu items: open file, save file, close file. Well, those are those menu items that we have out here. So it's open, save, close. So, yeah. How did I open what? I clicked on it over here to the left-hand side, and then I went up to run, and I selected run. There's about well, I got hello world in here too. 1, 2, 3, 4 different examples all in the same folder. You could do a run as, or you could just do a run on it. So here's the Notepad constructor, because the entire file is the class file Notepad. I set the initial size to 500 by 300. If you leave it on, it'll come an itsy bitsy little window by default. So if you want to set an initial size, then you can always expand it. I set the title to Java Notepad Tutorial. Now this is the exit on close. So if I close it this way, it's going to exit like it's going to close down. Which is interesting. Now I could set the font here to Century Gothic for the window. Actually, it's kind of a small font. I can actually make it bigger. This says 12. So actually, oops, let's make this 30. Let me run this again, because this font's actually kind of small. Now the font is bigger. Much bigger now. But here's the funny thing though, if I save it to test. Well, let's see, let me put it back on the desktop. Big fonts. In the file, it's not saved as big fonts. If I open up this file, now I have it in text edit. Now that's the font on my machine. So in the file itself, if I open it, let's say Text Wrangler, text edit, I guess it's my default text editor. It doesn't look as big as it does in my Notepad window, but that's because I set and the font's different. This is my system font for text edit. But you can see actually text edit is a more elaborate version of this Notepad version. You can easily make your own just by changing this around a little bit. This one has the file menu, it has the edit, it's got a bunch of other stuff, but let me close this one down so I don't confuse them. So you can set the border, the layout. This is a one big old text view, or text area, I should say. Just the same way as the calculator, but instead of when I typed in that calculator one, it was right justified, and it was only one line long. This is many lines. Let's see, so we set the menu bar itself, and set the labels on the menu bar to file, which is where we're getting that file from. And then we're going to put the action listeners on the open, the save, and the close. And then the shortcut, the menu shortcuts, we could actually pull these things off, but that's where you're going to get the command button with O, S, and F4. If you remember in the old Windows days, you could press like command buttons to navigate the GUI without a mouse. That's kind of old. That's kind of antiquated. I'd probably, if I were doing this, I'd probably pull it out. But add the listeners, and then on the action performed, it's going to perform a J file chooser. So this object here that's doing all of this functionality here, which doesn't looks similar, but it doesn't look exactly like the Mac interface. It's because we're using a Java component. It's called a JFileChooser. So JFileChooser open is equal to new JFileChooser. Well, we're just making a new instance of that object. This is the object. It's just we're calling it open. So it's kind of primitive looking file chooser. The file chooser will look different on a Windows machine as well. And then in here, it's going to select the file to file as a text file, and it'll do something with it. Let's try to open something that's not a text file. I'm going to open up this one here. I have really no error checking on this at all. It didn't open it. Opened up a Word file. It didn't open it. So maybe a little. Oh no, it did open it. Wow. Whoa. It's a Microsoft Word file. It doesn't, yeah, Microsoft Word file is not a text file. So I'm surprised it actually did try to open it. Yeah, okay, we'll just leave that alone. Okay, anyway. That is kind of weird when I look at it. I probably should have put a check on it to see if it was a text file, because you can, there's a, oh wow. You can actually see if the file itself is a text file. Let's see, the scanner here is the same scanner we saw before, a scanner, new file, but this is on a file reader. The scanner is actually taking the file contents and loading it up into the input buffer and putting it out on the output. So it's doing not a system out, but it is. I mean, if you do system out.println x.getMessage, it's essentially going to give you the message from the scanner that's coming in, which is the input text. So it's supposed to be a string format when it comes through. And the main program looks like this. Notepad app is equal to new notepad app dot set visible to true. So the main driver program is pretty small. The rest of it is just the notepad functionality that's working on that. So that's put in there again as an example. You can use that probably quite easily. I want you to make your own version of Notepad if you can. Do something different with it. Change the font around. You can recycle all of this code. So the idea is not to, in a 10-week course, you're not going to learn Swing. In fact, you can take an entire course on just Swing alone. So the purpose of the assignment is to get your feet wet with it a little bit, play around with it, have some fun with it. And if you don't want to do a notepad program, you can do your own calculator version or your own something else. If you want a nice, sweet little starting point, Hello World for Swing is probably, and what I've done is I've gone from the complex down to the simple. So this is the simplest one. Outside of this one, Notepad's pretty simple. This one isn't using any AWT, it's just using Swing. And then we've got Swing frame and a label. So we have Hello World extends JFrame. And then we have the main method is going to make a new Hello World. And Hello World is a label. It's a J label. Hello World is equal to new J label. It says Hello World from class. Change it a little bit here. We're going to add Hello World to the frame. We're going to set the size to 100 to 100. I also make it 200 to 200. There we go. And then we're going to set it to visible to true. So if I run it, I'm going to see a big old Hello World showing up on my screen. There it is. Hello World from class. It's not really that big. I probably could play around with the fonts or something. And I see that I get this automatically. So if I go about Hello World, it's going to say about Hello World. All the stuff I get automatically, huh? Good question. I think it's probably just set by default. It's not, I didn't set any version in anything here. Yeah. This one doesn't close. I didn't set the close on exit, so I actually have to exit it. If I close the window, it's not going to exit. It's still going to be running. This about is as simple as you can get. Is the Hello World one. So when you're tackling, and let's take a look again now, at more complex. So I would start out with the one that says Swing Programming on it. The other one that says, when you unpack it, it just says Swing on it. There are custom dialog boxes, custom find boxes. This one is overkill. Let me run one of these here. There's 2 Notepad programs inside of it. One of them is called JavaPad. Actually, there's 3. There's JavaPad, JavaPad 2, Notepad 4, and then there's another Notepad. It's just a bunch of Notepad code stuck in here with interesting little dialog boxes. So there's an about box. Each one of the little windows is loaded separately. There's a find, there's a number. So if I run let me just run JavaPad here. This will run JavaPad. JavaPad version 1.0. Where's my? We're pretty hosed. We don't have anything. It just runs the window. All right, let's run JavaPad 2. This one is better. And then this one here has a find search file, so I can still open and close with this one. And this one I removed the shortcut, so you don't see that on here. So you can say find. Let's say 1. Didn't find it. Oh, probably because I have to put the cursor here. Hold on 1 second. Search find 1. Okay, we're not working. It's okay. Oh, is that what the problem is? There it is. found it. Oh, that's better. Let's see what else is this sucker going to do. That's about it. Let's see, replace. Case sensitive? Nah. This is replace all, I believe. Oop, that one's broken. Oh, just leave that one alone. It's a little buggy. This one only has a find and a replace on it. Yeah, it doesn't have the sophisticated. This one here has got all the sophisticated dialog boxes that are going to show up. So if I run this one, let's see. This one's got file. No. Yeah, this one's got. This one has the about box. No? Ooh. It's probably this one that's got it then. To find it. It's been years. Yes, this one is the one that has the. No? One of them has that specialized about box. This one has a little slightly different colored menu. Looks more Windows-like. This one will do the fonts for you. Oh, change the whole thing. Excellent. To uppercase. Ah, there we go. Ah, there we go. I put the little VW logo in here. Volkswagen. It's actually in the project. If you look at the text file, I just threw a logo in there. About some Notepad stuff goes here. Some other stuff goes here. That's the custom about box. This is the one. It's actually from the Notepad subfolder. If you're looking for it. I thought I had one that does foreground and background color. I think I do, actually. Let's see. It might not be in here. I may not have given it out. No, I don't think it's not in here. It's extremely easy to add the color of the font to. It's just a different one, but in essence, it's just more of the same. This one is fully using Swing. So it's creating a Notepad, my Notepad, this Notepad here. And this Notepad here has all of the things laid out. So it has all of the separate menus for everything. And this is how we're getting the bar. There's a menu separator in there. So there's a J separator, which is giving us our fancy little bar up here, and then the separator between the different sections. Oh, look at that. What printer am I in? Am I in the office? No. So it's an exploration. You can use all of this stuff, put together your own notepad. You get real desperate, see if you can get one of these notepads to work. Put it into your own code, make your own project out of it. Don't give me my exact example back. I give you something, you play with it, you give me something different back, which is how that works. So, do we already, I know this is like a lot of stuff, or just, it's overkill for what you actually need to do for that assignment, but play around with it, you might actually have some fun with it. And again, if you don't want to do a notepad, you don't have to do a notepad. You can do something else if you want. Questions on GUI stuff? No? Alright, so I'm going to stop this recording.